Hello and welcome to the Voices of MCC podcast. Our hope is that you will be encouraged in your faith as you hear how MCC beliefs and practices are fleshed out in the daily lives of the members of our fellowship. I am grateful to have today Clarence and Joyce Jackson on the podcast, founding members of MCC and members of Berean Baptist Church that was a part, it was before MCC, and the building that we are recording this podcast in it was owned by Berean and then given to MCC in a transition in the late 90s. That MCC was a restart of Berean Baptist, and Clarence and Joyce were a part of that. Clarence and Joyce, welcome to the Voices of MCC podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to go first, Clarence?
Yes, I want to just think with you here about your early days. Take us back, Clarence, to Berean Baptist, your early days at Berean. If you can give us the estimate of year and perhaps early involvement, and Joyce as well. Just chime in together and tell folks about those early days of Berean Baptist.
It was 69 or something like that when Brother Bohannon visited with us.
First approached us after coming to church with Clarence's mother. And we were here quite often with her.
And he came to the house one evening and we both accepted Christ in 1971 and were baptized shortly thereafter.
And that was Pastor Bohannon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I remember meeting him in the early 2000s. He came back to Kansas City,
right.
I believe, for a reunion.
Right.
This was probably 2000, well, maybe around 2008 or 9. Could it have been that late?
No.
Somewhere in there. There was a reunion and he came back and I had the privilege of meeting him, and just a sweet gentleman. I believe at that time he was living in North Carolina.
Right.
I don't know where he's at now.
Yeah.
That's fun to think back about the connections there that you all had with him and him leading you to Christ in 1971 and baptized them.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long after he baptized us that he left, and Brother Joe Barber came and was here for 28 years or more, I think. And, a surprise to me was shortly after he came, he asked me if I would start a bus ministry. And I told him I wasn't a pastor. I didn't know I couldn't be a minister. And he explained to me, you didn't have to be. And so me and a young lady here in church started this bus ministry, and she was in it for a few years and went to college and wasn't around. And
That was Sarah Littlefield.
Yes, Sarah Littlefield. And I stayed with it faithfully for 22 years.
When we think about those days, Berean Baptist and Brother Bohannon and then Joe Barber coming, Joyce, any reflections from you on those days of early life and fellowship?
Well, I really hate bringing up a negative, but there was not a lot of mentoring at that time, especially for new Christians. And I was immediately asked to go into the nursery and the 5-year-old class, and just the inadequacy on my part, although I did it for 5 or 6 years probably. But that's what I like about today is compared to them is that you challenge people to, you know that they're true Christians before you go ahead and give them opportunity to work with children and this type of thing. And I love the children, and especially when the Laotians came. Those children were basically a delight. even though none of them could speak English, they were really great to work with. And didn't get to know their families a lot, but the children I did. And, the one blessing that I can say, especially, is the growth of Christian friends and seeing that over the years and knowing that I am part of the Lord's chosen, so, but
Yes, that's a rich time to reflect on the blessings then. And it's fun to hear both of you talking about those early days in Berean Baptist and children's ministry. Clarence with the bus, getting kids, Joyce, you beginning to teach, and you're having fellowship with Christian friends and learning to grow. And all churches, there are ups and downs, and there are things that could be done better or in hindsight. And it's one of the things that, we want to do at MCC is see what people's gifting is and train them, help them have training for that, and have seasons where they're serving and seasons where they're off. We don't want anyone teaching for years straight. That's one of the reasons why we have our seasonal approach to ministry, so that we can organize things and everyone can be involved, but no one is constantly serving. Hopefully that's what we want to try to do. And it gives everyone a chance to use their gifting and our membership process of listening to people's testimonies and going through, making sure they understand this. And it's important how we process this. Well, let's progress here. We're in the 70s and you're converted. The Lord saves you. You're a part of a local church. You're beginning to serve. Clarence, you're doing a bus ministry for 22 years. Joyce, you're serving and growing in friendship, and I'm sure cooking and helping in the kitchen and so many other ways. Let's progress into the 80s, 90s. What memories of fellowship do you have in those years?
Well, it's just the growth of the friends. I was reflecting on different ones that have even passed now. There's very few that are still living. And just this past week, I have brought those people to mind again, which you tend to, forget a lot of times. And I am so thankful, during that time, even that, and then with the progression and growth of the church, meeting new friends, the young people that have come in and then moved on. So.
How about you, Clarence? Into the 80s, 90s, were there certain highlights of ministry for you that you recall?
Well, one thing it reflects from the bus ministry was we had three brothers that came on the bus, and we always had children's church in the other end of the building. And one day we had them up here, and one boy was kind of an agitator with the other two and stirred things up, and they were creating a disturbance here in about the third row back. And I got up and sat down between them and put my arm around this young man and pulled him close to me. And I told him, you have to sit still while you're in the church so people can hear and focus on the church. And he struggled for a while, and then he relaxed. And when he did, I patted him on the shoulder and said, thank you. And if he sat still now until church is over, that'd be good. And he did. He was out of the church real quick and got on the bus. We got to his house, and he was the first one off the bus, and he run up to the front steps of the house. And his brothers finally got around and got off the bus, and he come running back down the steps and jumped up on the bus, put his arms around me and said, I love you too. That is something that melts your heart and makes you want to stay in the bus ministry.
Yes.
So,
yes, that's fun to hear of the impact that you have had on kids and connecting with them.
Because when I was correcting him here, I told him I loved him, but he had to sit still, and he reflected back.
I think there are probably some MCC parents right now wanting to hire you for Sunday mornings. Could you come and sit by my kid and just put your arm around and say, I love you, but you got to sit still.
But you don't have to beat a kid to death to let them know you love them.
That's true.
And actually, the MCC families today are great with their children. I am so impressed with the love and that they show each other and each, other children in the fellowship. It's great.
Mm-hmm. It really is a sense of we have our own children, but we want to help each other with
Right.
each other's children.
Mhm.
And it's a whole atmosphere.
Right.
There are distinctions, but there's a good bit of commonality as well.
And I myself have corrected a child or two, and the parents don't tend to mind.
Yeah.
Which out in the world, you say something to a child and the parent will immediately take offense.
Yes. Well, let's think about the transition then from Berean to MCC. What reflections do you have on that, especially just from in terms of the fellowship aspect, the people together and your own reflections and experiences there?
Well, again, we feel since the transition happened, I feel so much more presence of the Lord in the building when I walk in, just seeing everybody and the way they greet. And that's why we have not changed our membership south. It's because we have never felt that. And I think we've felt it more here several weeks ago when we visited a church in Lewisburg than I've ever felt in a church before. And it's other than Masters. It was a church in Lewisburg. The pastor was Pastor Summers. And it was Baptist Temple in Lewisburg. But the people were just so outgoing and friendly and basically what we have here.
Mm.
And it's great to see that happening down there when we've been to so many churches and not seen that or felt the love.
We went with a Christian couple that we had befriended down there. And when we got there, a young man was walking up the sidewalk and he was surprised because he used to be my neighbor.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I knew he went to church over there somewhere. I didn't know where. He plays the drums and the music. And his wife and his sister-in-law,
Yeah.
I guess, his wife's sister, were all there. And then we run into another man who works in a hardware store there in Drexel, was going to that church. So we had a little bit of a connection and really.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that we're going to jump in.
Oh, no, not. We know there's a day for all of us to transition from a church and various factors, often
I'm
geography.
thinking of transition from here to heaven. So.
Yes, amen. We will take that. We will take that. And
Mhm.
many folks may not know that you all drive almost an hour one way.
About 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yes, from Drexel, Missouri.
Right.
And before that, Paola.
right. Well, which is only about 5 miles away from where we are now.
Yeah.
So,
And you used to live here, not far from the church, just
Down
down
the
the street
Yeah,
from the church facility. But you have kept your membership here. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to think with you during fellowship season here, 2021, because your longevity in fellowship is so unique. It is holy. It is of the Lord. Your commitment, your stick-to-itiveness, you have not faltered in that. Even in church transitions, you have held on to the Lord's hand as he is guiding you, and that is unique. It's remarkable. It is commendable. It's something that I wish to emulate, and I wish every Christian would emulate. Now, certainly, again, there may be reasons to leave a church over time, or especially geography, move so far that it's just impossible, or a different city or something. But you've commuted, you've kept this commitment because of people. And this is important. It's churches' relationships. And you've been a model for that to me and to many. And it's great. When we think about the transition from Berean Baptist to Masters, there were a lot of changes that happened, and pretty quickly in terms of how structure happened and so forth, and preaching, and you all sort of just held on. And I know how much I appreciated that. Julie and I began attending MCC in 2000, the January of 2000. So we moved to Kansas City in 99.
Al Geron was here.
Yes, and Al was here. And we wanted a church that was Southern Baptist, that had expository preaching through books, that had a plurality of leaders making decisions, hopefully elders, but some kind of plurality. So it wasn't just a one-man show, so to speak, making decisions and so forth. We really thought value in that. And then it had a church nursery, because we had little kids.
Yes.
And to find a church like that in Kansas City at that time was rare, because most Southern Baptist churches preached topically. Most had one pastor who made most of the decisions without a great deal of accountability until church business meetings. And then everything would blow up every time. And then it would settle down, and then another business, and it was ups and downs, and we wanted some consistency. And so we came to MCC, and immediately the loving atmosphere. We remember you all, others who were so welcoming to us, and we just began to feel at home right away. I did my internship in 2000. About the time I was finished, Al Geron had desired to go and kind of do restart in other churches. And I think I've told you the story before, but at your pond and your farm in Paola is when we were fishing, and Al asked if I wanted to be the senior pastor. He expressed the desire to move on, and I said yes. I said yes, and
that was a blessing to us.
Well, it's been
the picnics are great.
Yes.
I'm so sorry we can't do that anymore, but
yeah, we used to have picnics at your place and in Paola. Wonderful times at your farm, and we still get to do those in other places at times, but those were special days, and that was a special time.
You remember the picnic we had that the community come from New Lancaster Church?
Yes.
And that was a blessing, because those people still mention that.
Yeah.
You know, they were very impressed with MCC and the fellowship that was there.
Yeah. You all serve in different ways even now, praying for people at MCC, guiding kids, young families, encouraging them, and serving in the kitchen in so many ways, even around the building, yet in different little ways.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Your fingerprints and heart are still on so many folks and activities at MCC, and that's a blessing for folks to come and see that and to connect. I think of the interns that have gone out and how they still speak about you all and the impact that you have had on them. So you have impacted interns who are now leading churches and creating that same kind of fellowship. And we were in Alaska with the McElroys earlier this year, and there's a couple there that reminded Julie and I so much of you two.
Yes.
Who have been faithful at this church, and now Alan gets to have fellowship with them. They're serving in different ways, and really a blessing in that regard. Yeah. Well, I am grateful for the chance for folks to just hear from you about now 50 years this year of ministry. If 1971 was when you were converted,
Right.
It's 2021. That would be 50 years here in this building. And 50 years of fellowship is a pretty remarkable legacy. And I am grateful for it, for you all. And I trust that this will be a great example for MCC, for young families in the years ahead. Thanks for taking the time, Clarence and Joyce, to be with us. And I want to thank Pastor Adam Anderson and Caleb Sheffield for their musical introduction and conclusion here, and Alex Wolfman for producing our podcasts. Until next time, the Lord bless and keep you.